Alright, so I want to start this video by being honest. When I first looked at this thing, I genuinely did not know what it was. It looks like a DVD player or maybe a VCR without a tape slot, or just some random old silver box you'd find in someone's basement. There's buttons everywhere. There's numbers, it says FM, AM, presets, tuning modes. It looks complicated in that very old tech way where nothing is labeled in a friendly way. But once you actually stop and read what's printed on the front, it becomes clear what this is. This is a Technics ST-Z55 FM/AM stereo tuner. Not a full stereo, not a receiver, not something that plays discs or tapes. This thing has one job. It tunes radio signals. That's literally it. And the reason it exists as its own box is because back when this was made, that was completely normal. This video is going to be quite long because this thing needs context. You can't just say it's a radio tuner, it sounds pointless. But once you understand when it was made, who it was made for, and how people actually use this stuff, it starts to make way more sense. So, let's clear up the biggest confusion first. What does a stereo tuner actually do? A tuner does not amplify sound, it does not power speakers, and it doesn't even control volume. All it does is receive a radio signal, decode it, and send a clean audio signal out to another piece of equipment, usually an amplifier or a receiver. Back in the 70s, 80s, and early 90s, home audio systems were built out of separate components. You didn't buy one plastic box from Walmart and call it a day. You'd have to stack a tuner, an amplifier, and maybe a cassette deck, maybe a turntable, maybe later a CD player. Each piece did one job, and ideally it did that job really well. So this tuner would sit in a rack, usually directly above or below a matching Technics amplifier. You'd turn on your amp, select the tuner input, and this box would be responsible for pulling in radio stations as cleanly and accurately as possible. And that's why there's so many buttons on the front, as you can see, because this was meant to be controlled, not just turned on and forgotten. Now, let's talk about Technics, because that name actually matters here. Technics was a high-end audio brand of Matsushita Electric Industrial, which today we know as Panasonic. But Technics wasn't their budget line. This was the brand they used when they wanted to show off engineering precision and build quality. When you see Made in Japan on older Technics gear, that's generally a good sign. They were especially respected for turntables, amplifiers, and tuners. They weren't chasing trends, they were chasing performance and reliability. That's why a lot of this gear still exists 30 to 40 years later. Even if it's dusty, dirty, or scratched up like this, you can just tell how disgusting this is. This specific tuner, the ST-Z55, isn't some ultra high-end audiophile unicorn, but it is a mid-range, well-engineered component from a time when companies still expected their products to last decades. And you can usually feel that just by handling it. Metal chassis, solid buttons, and no cheap flexing plastic. Based on the design, labeling, and features, this tuner is from roughly the mid to late 1980s. You can tell by the way everything is laid out. Physical preset buttons, segmented digital display, and heavy emphasis on quartz synthesizer technology. This was a period where analog and digital were kind of overlapping, and people still listened to a lot of radio, but they wanted more precision than old analog tuning dials. So manufacturers started putting digital frequency displays and electronic tuning systems into otherwise more traditional audio gear. At the time, owning something like this meant you were into home audio. You didn't buy this casually. You bought it because you already had speakers, an amplifier, and probably other Technics components. This was an entry-level gear, but it wasn't luxury gear. It was solid. It was respectable. It was like middle-class hi-fi. The phrase quartz synthesizer sounds like marketing, but it actually describes something important. Older tuners used purely analog tuning circuits, which could drift slightly over time. Temperature changes, component aging, or even just bumping the dial could cause the station to move off frequency, which would introduce noise or distortion. Quartz locked tuner uses a quartz crystal oscillator, similar to what's used in digital clocks and watches. It's to stabilize the tuning frequency. In simple terms, once the tuner locks onto a station, it stays exactly there, no drifting, and there's no gradual loss of clarity. For the user, this means more consistent reception, better stereo separation on FM, and less fiddling with tuning. This was considered a real upgrade at the time, especially for people who listened to FM music stations and cared about sound quality. Looking at the front panel, it can feel overwhelming at first, but every button has a purpose. The FM/AM band selection is obvious. FM for music, AM for mostly talk and news. The tuning buttons allow you to step through frequencies manually or automatically, as you can see here. Auto tuning scans until it finds a strong station, which was honestly pretty advanced and convenient at the time. The preset buttons, labeled 1 through 16, let you store your favorite stations. This means you didn't have to scan every time. You could just press a number and jump straight to the station. That might not sound impressive today, but before this, people were literally making dial positions with tape. The FM mode switch, which lets you choose between stereo and mono, is especially important. Let me show you that real quick. Here it is. Stereo FM sounds better when the signal is strong, but when it's weak, mono can dramatically reduce noise. And that switch is there because this tuner was designed to actually give you control over reception quality, not just automate everything. Alright, so to really understand this thing, imagine a normal use case in the 80s. Someone comes home, turns on their amplifier, maybe flips on a floor lamp, sits down with a drink, maybe a whiskey, and puts the tuner on FM. They'd scroll through stations, save a few presets, and just let music play through proper speakers in the living room. Radio wasn't background noise, it was content back then. Late night radio, live DJs, specialty music shows, talk radio, all of that mattered. And a tuner like this was designed to sit quietly in a rack and just do its thing without getting in the way. That's why there's no volume knob, no flashy lights, and there's no gimmicks either. It assumes you already know what you're doing. Now we actually get to the big question. Is this actually useful today? Sorry for the background noise. From a purely practical standpoint, for most people, no. Most people listen to music through their phones, or Bluetooth speakers, streaming services, podcasts, or internet radio. FM and AM radio aren't central anymore, especially for younger listeners like me. But for certain people, yes, absolutely. If you already have a component audio system, if you enjoy physical hardware, or if you care about over-the-air radio broadcasts, a dedicated tuner like this still does exactly what it was designed to do. It doesn't need updates, accounts, or internet access. You plug it in, connect an antenna, and it works. So it's not useful in a modern convenience sense, but it's useful in a deliberate old school way. In today's used market, these aren't insanely expensive. In Canada, a Technics tuner like the ST-Z55 usually goes for somewhere between $30 and $90 Canadian currency. Depending on condition and whether it's tested and working, mint condition units with clean faces and good displays go higher. Dirty or untested ones go lower. This isn't rare collector gear. It's not something that's going to fund your retirement, but it's also not worthless junk. There's a steady niche market of people who like vintage audio and will happily pay for a clean, functional tuner from a respected brand. Whether this is worth it really depends on why you're interested. If you just want easy audio and modern convenience, this is objectively worse than a phone and a Bluetooth speaker. No argument there. But if you're into electronics, vintage tech, audio history, or teardown content, like me, this thing is absolutely worth having. It's built well, understandable, serviceable, and representative of a specific era of consumer electronics where things were designed to be repaired, not replaced. And from a content perspective, it looks cool. It has weight, it has buttons, and it tells a story. That alone makes it worth keeping around. Alright guys, so if you enjoyed today's video, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, what you like most about this video, and stay tuned for the next one.